philosophy. In this segment, we'd like to go over the concept of equality as it pertains to human beings and in the context of the law and its application here in the United States. I'd like to start out with a Supreme Court case from 1896, Plessy versus Ferguson. In this case, Homer Plessy, who was an octoroon, which is a person of 7/8 white and 1/8 black ancestry, deliberately violated Louisiana's Separate Car Act of 1890, which required equal but separate train car accommodations for white and non-white passengers. Upon being charged, Plessy's lawyers defended him by arguing that the law was unconstitutional. He lost at trial and his conviction was affirmed on his appeal to the Louisiana Supreme Court. Plessy then appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court, which agreed to hear his case, and in a 7-1 decision, they decided against Plessy, ruling that Louisiana law did not violate the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. What this case did is it set a precedent in the American South for the years to come in what was known as the Jim Crow era, in which all public facilities were segregated based on this law. So restaurants, pools, hotels, schools, and every other sort of public facility remained segregated until the Brown versus Board of Education decision in 1955. What this case demonstrates is that poor philosophy precedes bad policy. It also demonstrates how one set of circumstances is used to justify another. In other words, because the Supreme Court said that Louisiana could segregate their rail car system, other states and other jurisdictions used this ruling to segregate everything else. So the Plessy versus Ferguson decision shows how precedent is set and how those precedents are used to justify a philosophical continuation of that ruling. So how does this apply in application to us in this country as human beings? Well, if we go back to the Declaration of Independence, we see that Thomas Jefferson wrote that all men are created equal. In that phrase, Jefferson does not state that all men and women are created equal, and Jefferson, having been a slave owner, it could be inferred that Jefferson did not mean that all European persons and persons of African descent are created equal. So what the passage says is that all men are created equal, which is the philosophy upon which most of our modern notions of equality are derived. We can be sure that even that statement is not exactly true. All men are not created equal. Some can run faster than others. Some score higher on IQ tests. Some like to sing, some like to dance, some don't. So, very simply, there is a problem with the philosophy of the founding of the United States because it isn't accurate. What I'd really like to get into is how this applies today, especially in the realm of modern day feminism, or third wave feminism as some might like to refer to it. Men and women are inherently different. There's no denying or disputing that. It's as plain as could be. And yet, these doctrines of equality are consistently called upon to justify that a certain equality be enforced between men and women. Or you could use other groups of people, but men and women are the easiest example because the differences are easiest to illustrate. And in certain regards, men and women are equal. They're equal in their humanity. They're equal in their importance in propagating the species. They're equal in the rights that they have. However, there are biological differences that cannot be denied. We can think about this like we might think of an automobile. An automobile has certain parts that have to work together in order to get it to move. In an automobile, you have to have an engine and you have to have tires as well to get it to move. But those parts are not interchangeable. If you try to fill your hood full of rubber tires, you're not going to get very far. At the same time, if you attach 4 engine blocks to each end of each axle, you're not going anywhere either. So while these parts are, we might say, both integral to the operation of the automobile, they are not equal. They are not interchangeable. And that is the problem with the philosophy of modern third-wave feminism. Men and women, as we mentioned, are equal in some regards, but not in all. And that very point shows that they're not equal because the definition of equal is a mathematical equality. And the concept of equality should be relegated to numbers because that's the only place that it really exists. When we look at these things, equality cannot be applied to describe relationships between human beings. When we think about the nuances of the words that we say, and we say equality, most people think about the mathematical concept of equality, where 1 equals 1. There's no two ways about it. But mathematics is all theoretical. It's all imaginary. It's not a concrete thing. When you attempt to make the sexes interchangeable based on this idea of mathematical equality, it doesn't work. And this idea of men and women being interchangeable in the workforce or interchangeable in their roles in society is poor philosophy. And if we as a society want to advance, we've got to recognize that. Which leads me into the next segment in which we will discuss progressivism and what progressivism is and whether or not what mainstream progressivism is referred to is actually progress.